Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Guy Ritchie's Swept Away from 2002, starring Madonna, Adriano Gianni, and Bruce Greenwood, and again directed by Guy Ritchie. And why is this a Guy Ritchie movie? This has nothing to do with mobsters. It's more like a romantic comedy. But with people, well, let me get into it and you'll see what I'm gonna say up the top. A spoiled rich bitch named Amber, played by Madonna, goes on a ship with her husband Tony, played by Bruce Greenwood, along with their friends Debbie, played by Elizabeth Banks, Todd, Marina, and Michael in Italy, and meet the captain of the ship as well as their waiter Giuseppe, something like that, played by Adriano Gianni, showing them around the ship, and Amber comes off like a spoiled rich bitch, as I hate this fucking character as well as the other characters, while the others on the ship don't matter. Even Tony, and I don't like Giuseppe either, and I'll get to why later in the film. And I don't know why Madonna and director Guy Ritchie got married and put her in this piece of shit. Like, this is the wrong fucking movie to show your wife acting like a spoiled rich bitch. And Madonna is not a very good actress in general, as she's much better of a singer than an actress. Amber continues to insult Giuseppe with his coffee while the chefs are laughing at Giuseppe about how much of a bitch she's being to him while they play some poker, and Giuseppe cleans the ashtrays and gives his opinion on a word which I don't give a shit about, as the next day comes and she insults the cooking of the fish and continues to get on his nerves as well as mine. And if it were me, if someone acted like this while I was married to that person, I would say divorce this motherfucking bitch big time. And the shots are very poor. While Giuseppe shows the captain how obnoxious Amber really is, and he curses in front of her, and I'm already hating this movie at as this is the worst piece of dialogue ever from director Guy Ritchie. Amber purposely traps Giuseppe so she can ask if they can get along, and he can't stand her. And hell, I can't stand her either. And the men are much nicer to the staff than the women are. I mean, like, Jesus Christ. And these people are that fucking spoiled. I mean, goddamn. While Giuseppe tells the captain to go to bed as he drops some cocaine in the water, next day comes as Amber dresses like a rich person. She wants to go out in the water, and the weather might get worse later in this scene as they go far from the boat, and they run out of gasoline. No motherfucking thanks to Amber, while she whines too fucking much. And nighttime comes, and it's cold as hell out there. And Amber demands Giuseppe to fix the engine, and he refuses. While the next morning comes and starts fixing the engine, while dropping the knife in the engine. And the cinematography was terrible, as well as the shots throughout. Giuseppe catches a fish and tries to make Amber eat the fish as she throws the fish in the water, and they find a ship as Amber shoots the flare gun on the lifeboat because she refuses to give it to Giuseppe, and a storm comes at night, and eventually Amber finds an island and wakes up Giuseppe, and the shots on the island look terrible, as this movie is miserable to watch. And if it weren't for the show, I would have pulled off another Screamers, but I'm not going to do that again, as I have to continue for the show. While Amber continually insults him as Giuseppe tells her off like she did for half the fucking movie, and she deserves it more than he does, because he never did a damn thing wrong, and she was a bitch to him throughout the whole fucking movie. And they look for ways to survive, like food, fire, and water, and shelter, so they can drink somewhere, as well as shelter. And 40 minutes into this movie, I'm just checked out at this point. And this is an 85-minute movie. Amber insults and throws sand at Giuseppe, and he hits her twice and orders her to wash his clothes and calls him a master while she acts like a slave. And she finds a way to wash his clothes for him, and he goes back to his shelter and leaves her outside and hits her once again. And next day comes and Giuseppe wakes Amber up and helps him to catch some fishes, and she tells him he's been kind to her when, yeah, bullshit. And he keeps assaulting her and demanding her to kiss his hand. And at this point, this is the reason why I don't like Giuseppe. Like, he has he ever learned not to assault a woman as he throws an octopus at her so they can eat it? And I've been waiting, I've been, and he's been waited on, and he starts acting like her. And either way, this is the messiest romantic comedy I have ever seen in my whole goddamn life. Giuseppe, and this is a fucking remake for Christ's sakes. Giuseppe demands Amber to dance for him as well as singing, as Giuseppe thinks of a home with Amber singing on stage, and later and he demands her to show her chest area while they fight each other and start humping each other's asses. And I'm like, oh my god, you can't be fucking serious. Just like that? I mean, really? As they start falling in love with each other, and I'm just like, that? And I'm like, just like that? As that was bullshit to begin with. And a piece of music I've heard in trailers for other movies was misused in this god-awful piece of garbage of a film. And director Guy Ritchie should be ashamed by this movie to begin with. And the next day she brings him firewood, and Amber kisses his feet up to his leg to even his lips, which felt so unrealistic at so many levels. They fall for each other as she stays in a shelter and he keeps her warm at night, and rains the next day, and he wants to fix the roof as he makes a mess, and she confesses she wasn't happy when she started the movie, and they find an alcoholic whiskey, and she drinks while they play a guessing game in which I forget the name of it, and they have fun with each other. And we move on to the next day. Amber says she leaves Giuseppe, and he doesn't believe it at first, but he'll learn it was true. Then she hunts for an octopus for him as well as its eggs, having the time of their lives. And I'm not buying this romance as it feels completely unrealistic. They eventually get off the island as Giuseppe calls the ship to help, while Amber wants to stay on the island with him. And they learn they've been on the news, and Tony talks to Amber and gives Giuseppe a reward for keeping her alive. And a rich man wants to help him out with a fancy hotel room, but Giuseppe doesn't want the room, but for some reason takes Tony's money to buy an engagement ring for Amber while she's married to Tony. And Giuseppe calls Amber and tells her he loves her and wants to give her a choice by leaving an envelope for her with the ring inside in her hotel messages, and tells her to grab it when she's all alone until Tony shows up and gets his message about the helicopter, and makes a phone call at the front desk and sees the envelope with the ring inside. And Tony takes Amber back to home to New York as she takes back the envelope to the helicopter man and gives them a $100 tip. And the man returns the envelope, and Giuseppe tries to go after her, but he's too late and throws the ring in the water. And the climax was horrible, as I'm believing she didn't learn a damn thing about truly loving someone, but instead goes back to her unhappy life, which really pissed me off. And we'll see how pissed I am with the rating. I'll give this movie a 1.6 out of 10. The movie, this might not be fair to director Guy Ritchie's, this might be the worst so far by director Guy Ritchie's worst film ever. And Madonna is a terrible actress, as her character comes off like a bitch, as she doesn't learn a goddamn thing by the end of the movie. And I was checked out by the 40-minute mark to an 85-minute movie, as this is the messiest romantic comedy in all my goddamn life. The cinematography was terrible, as the shots were awful, and the writing in this movie was disgusting. And I don't know what in the fuck was director Guy Ritchie thinking, making his wife act in this terrible, terrible film. The movie is so unrealistic, as it has a terrible ending, while director Guy Ritchie should be ashamed for making this god-awful film, as this is a strong non-recommendation for this piece of garbage, as Madonna is a much better singer than an actress, in my opinion, and I don't want to see her in another movie ever again, with an exception of A League of Her Own, which she was very good in, and that's the only film I'll watch again with her in it. But yeah, she's not a very good actress. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and next time I will be back with Revolver. And until then, life is a mystery, like why this movie sucks ass.